Hello everyone, welcome you all to the Tech Geek webinar. Thank you for joining the session today. The topic of today's talk is Uncomplicate IoT, demystifying the complex IoT challenges with an integrated IoT platform. It will be a 1 hour session with around 40 to 45 minutes for the presentation and the remaining time for the Q&A. So if you have any questions, please send them to us using the questions tab on the GoToWebinar control panel. I'm Anmol, the moderator of this session, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to our guest speaker, Ms. Karen Ravindranath. Karen is the director of WebNMS IoT, a division of Zoho Corporation. She has over 16 years of experience in Internet of Things and telecom software products and solutions, and currently heads the Internet of Things initiatives at Zoho Corporation. She is responsible for various functions in IoT, from strategy, partner ecosystem, development, product roadmap development, marketing, and innovation. She has played strategic business and technology roles in bringing about connected digital transformations through IoT transformations in key sectors such as energy, IIoT, utilities, and retail. So, without any further delay, let me introduce you all to our guest speaker. Over to you, Karen.
Thanks, Anmol, for the quick introduction. And good afternoon, everyone. So, hope all of you had a good lunch. And now I think the challenge for me is to keep you awake and engaged through this session. So, I plan to keep it informative and interactive with a couple of polls which we'll run during the course of the webinar. And we'll have some really interesting case studies as well during the later part of the session. Coming to today's webinar, the topic for today is Uncomplicate IoT, demystifying the complex IoT challenges with an integrated platform. As Anmol had already told, I am the director of WebNMS IoT, which is an IoT division of Zoho Corporation. And I have been with Zoho for almost more than 17 years now, and the earlier part of my career was into telecom and network management. Of course, this was dealing with connectivity and managing thousands of devices as well. IoT is like a natural transition both for our company and for me, because as you are well aware, Internet of Things is again a huge network of connected devices with a greater focus on the big data and as well as analytics which comes along with it. So it is the data and analytics which we are going to focus on today. On my screen, I have a report by Statista Research that about 75 billion IoT devices will be connected by 2025. So this is no longer a trend that we can ignore, because all of you would agree that you would have experienced IoT at work in the course of your everyday life. So I think most of you would have come across or had some smart watches or wearables, consumer electronics, smart home products as well, and even connected vehicles. And of course, industrial machines and assets, everything is being connected and bringing IoT experience to our doorstep. So it is definitely important that we take cognizance of the importance of IoT and how it is going to change the world around us, and as well as the business arena in the coming future. So IoT is not confined anymore to a few consumer products, but it is actually permeating its influence into every industry. Say, for example, some of the key industries which have been impacted by IoT are logistics, and also a lot in manufacturing. You would have heard about Industry 4.0, which is like related to manufacturing and production related activities. Then there is the utilities. So every day we see, more and more cities being onboarded into smart metering. Even your gas and water is being metered these days. So this is also an influence, or how IoT is permeating into our everyday life. Then there's building management. A lot of it also happening in healthcare. And of course, we've had a lot of emphasis from our government on smart cities and the like. So I hope this has given you enough evidence that every organization needs to turn its attention to IoT. Let's just run a quick poll. So Anmol, could you help me to run the first poll, please, where we are going to ask you a question. Where are you in your IoT journey? So this kind of explores and helps us to understand where every organization is in its journey. Are you already thinking about it, or already trying to implement something, or you already successfully implemented something, um, and you have added a feather to your cap?
Hi, Kiran. The
Yeah,
results are displaying on the screen.
yeah. So we see that quite a few of you are still into the exploratory phase. So I see about 80% of the respondents have said we are just exploring IoT and how it could help your organization. And of course, I see some of you have tried a lot of proof of concepts, and also some who had actually implemented, and a few who have said that, yes, you have a successful implementation as well. Kudos to you on that. So let's continue with the presentation. So I think because you are still in thinking of how IoT can help your organization, definitely that would be wonderful. This presentation would add a lot of value in order for you to um, see how you can potentially IoT can help your organization. Yeah. So coming back, so just like we had, yeah, how crucial is, one second, let me get back to. Okay, so how crucial is IoT for an enterprise? During a survey, we had done a survey last year in Gitex Technology Week, which is like a technology trade show in the Middle East. And here, I'd like to share some results from that as well over here. So there's an ongoing IoT deployment in my organization. So this is a question we had posed them, and we saw that 17 to 18% of respondents said they already have some kind of IoT initiative in their organization, whereas 80% were still did not have anything like that. But when we asked them, would you be investing into an IoT powered solution in the next 1 year? The answer was really interesting, because 91% of the respondents said that they would definitely be investing into an IoT solution in the coming year, which means we are already there this year. So this is the kind of traction that the industry is seeing on adopting IoT on a larger scale and a picture. Now, coming to IoT implementation. So for us, IoT implementation is basically strategic in nature. So it is more, it's not a tactile one, it's a strategic decision. So it always starts with the decision makers or business leaders who have to decide on the business and operational goals of why you choose to implement IoT, and which part of the value chain or the business functional areas of your organization you'd like to focus on and improve by using Internet of Things. So basically, it is a very strategic decision which needs to be made. And so now we come to the enterprise 101, which is basically, I'm going to share you the strategy for better IoT adoption. So the key to successfully implementing an IoT solution for your organization, or even starting an IoT journey in your organization, would definitely follow through these 3 steps. So as a decision maker, or a business head, the key thing that you would look at is to identify which functional area or the business value chain you would like to impact with IoT. And what are the kind of, second one is to define the transformative business outcomes. So what is the expectation, or what is the success metrics that you would like to define for the IoT initiative? So once these two, the functional area or the vertical where you want the improvement, it may be an area which you know that is lacking data. For example, so something like a black box, I don't have much information on what's happening, but I do see issues which with the presence of data can be alleviated. So that is a kind of a decision that a decision maker has to make, to identify where to use IoT. And once that is decided, we can also, it's also very important to kind of think about the outcomes or the goals of this initiative, because outcomes actually determine the success of the IoT initiative. Whether it is a proof of concept or it is a full scale IoT deployment, it is important to keep those success metrics ahead of you while you think about the IoT solution. And the third step, or the final step, is to plan the nitty-gritty of the IoT solution, where you drill down into the architecture or the tools that you're going to use, the platform you would use, and how you'd connect hardware, and who is going to help you in this journey, and then eventually to deploy the solution itself. So this would be a good strategy to think of it, of how to identify, then the outcomes, and then the nitty-gritty. So that would be a good way to look at it. Now, Anmol, could you help me run the second poll, which asks you, where do you expect IoT to impact most in your organization? So you may be from different verticals. So according to what you see in your organization, what do you think will be the most impactful or beneficial thing for your organization?
Hi, Karen. The results are displaying on the screen.
Yeah. So this shows a very a mixed response, but it's really nice to see that most of you have opted for monitoring and traceability. So in most of the IoT solution deployments, the key thing is it brings visibility into the monitoring and traceability. And of course, the second highest would be better customer engagement. And the third highest looks like new business models and revenue streams. And then come the cost optimization and improved product feedback. Thanks for the feedback. Let's get back to the presentation. So in the survey which I had run earlier in the GITEX week, we saw similar results. You would agree with me that proactive monitoring, as has been today, has been one of the top priorities. And then the other two were, of course, cost optimization and improved operational efficiencies. So there's kind of a great expectation being laid on IoT to give real-time monitoring data, and proactive monitoring, and agility to the data itself. So that digitization of the process is basically what most organizations are looking for in an IoT deployment. Now, let us look a little more into the IoT footprint in the enterprise value chain. So every business or enterprise has many verticals or functional areas. We will now see the kind of data and the kind of impact or business value that IoT can bring in each of these functions. So here we can see there are three layers. So the topmost layer talks about the stages in the value chain, or you can look at it as functional areas within your business. And the second layer actually talks about the solution requisite, or what is the expectation of data, so where all data can help us. And offshore is where you actually talk about what is the outcomes that we can derive. Now in stage one, it's planning and ideation. So let me give you an example of how IoT data can help us in the planning and ideation phase. This is more of a product feedback from a previous version or an asset which is already in the market. So say, for example, of Tesla cars. One version of this connected car has already gone on the into the market, and it's on the roads, and there's a lot of data coming in. This is a kind of data which feeds back into the planning or ideation or innovation for the second version of the product, or a better improved product itself. And again, if you are also seeing some live data about its performance, or any repeated failures that you see on the field, or replacement needs, those can be a feedback for the innovation to happen in the next round of product ideation. And again, for OEMs who don't have a smart product line already, say for example, you're not the Tesla car manufacturer anyway, so what about other OEMs who are looking at smart product lines? So this IoT enabled smart product line itself can be a new business model or a product group which you could think of as an planning and ideation phase. So going to stage two, this is pre-production. So once, this is more in a concept of a manufacturing industry, say for example, where there is a lot of, bringing in the product, that is the components. IoT can help in streamlining this process, and digitization with IoT data can help to give you efficiencies in the pre-production stage, as well as insights into where the bottlenecks or delays or any seasonal trends of availability are. And there can be predictive alternatives or solutions available. So in the pre-production state, a planned and predictive analytics kind of gives you what to do, and this minimizes the cost and the lead time of operations in this stage. Let's go to stage three. This is the actual production. Say, for example, whether it is an industrial IoT or a manufacturing industry, so process monitoring and traceability is a key factor. So real-time insights into the asset performances, and condition-based monitoring, and predicting failures ahead of time rather than being reactive in nature. These are possible with IoT. So basically, we put sensors onto the products, and those assets get monitored periodically and in real time, and that data gets fed into the IoT system, which gives enough information for further analytics. Not only, there are three types of insights we can gather. One is basically a descriptive insight, which says, okay, this is the condition of the asset, or what is the current happening. So the real-time data from the process or the production line or the quality measurement, everything. So the current happenings. And there is the second level of insights, which is predictive, which kind of gives you what can happen in future. So this is more like you can do preventive maintenance when you know that a future failure may happen because the vibration levels are higher in a particular asset. And there is also the third one, which is a prescriptive insight, which kind of makes a recommendation. It's a recommendation engine which can be built on the IoT data, and that can help you to avoid costly downtimes, avoid failures, which can really mean a lot of thousands of rupees because of failed production or delays in customer delivery. So these provide improved efficiencies, better quality, and cost savings. And also it readily translates into the bottom line improvement for the organizations. So this is also a very important phase which organizations can look at for IoT. Then there's the distribution layer, not only in manufacturing, but also, say, for example, simple service organizations, or restaurants, all of them still require logistics. Logistics is a key part of any industry. So here the key is traceability and process optimization, which translates into benefits such as cost efficiency and insightful operations. Now going to the next stage, which is our stage 5, marketing and sales. You might be thinking, how could IoT become a disruptive, change maker in marketing and sales as well? So as we talked about in the product ideation phase, right? So connected product lines are coming up a lot more nowadays. Today, ACs or lights are becoming IoT enabled, which means there is a growing appetite for connected products. So even consumer products or industrial products, everything, there is a need for it to become IoT enabled. So this is a disruption in the very business core of the business, that is the product that you are developing. And the second one is the disruption in the business model in terms of product as a service. So we've heard about, a SaaS, that is software as a service. Then we went to infrastructure as a service, and nowadays the trend is leaning more towards product as a service. So you would have definitely heard about, Boeing no longer makes its customers buy engines. Rather, engines are being leased by Boeing. So it is only the number of hours that an engine runs in a jet which is going to be paid for. So basically, we are moving from owning a product or product ownership to product as a service. And here the payment models also move into subscription models. And of course, this is made possible only with IoT, because every product as a service is contracted into using SLAs, which is service level agreements, which means you have to say the quantity and the efficiency of the assets have to be guaranteed by tracking the real-time asset data in the IoT. And of course, in stage 6, we talk about after sales services. So here, once a product is out in the market, IoT data from the smart product can provide inputs for support reps to provide appropriate solutions to the customer based on the live data which is coming from the asset, or any failure or any problem codes which come from the asset. So this kind of throws open the way you can proactively address customer needs and also involve them in a very satisfying touch point with the customer. And in case any products are there which need replacements or replenishments, then the service engineers will be able to proactively call the customer and remind them of a service visit, rather than waiting for the customer to initiate this kind of a discussion. So eventually this ends up in improved customer satisfaction. So if you see, IoT data is the core for providing all such valuable business impact in all of these use cases. These are really, really interesting use cases. And there is a lot of times I hear questions like, how do I prove a return on investment in IoT? So as we have practically seen case by case, all of these different verticals or different functional areas of business can definitely be impacted by IoT if thought about in the right way and planned strategically ahead of time. Now, this is again a simple recap of the impact of IoT in an enterprise. So there are two types of impact or benefits. So one is the operational impact, that is the on ground, so day-to-day operations, how does it improve because of implementing IoT? So digitization, or bringing in the digital data about your day-to-day operation, actually improves the efficiency and reduces unwarranted downtimes. It gives you help for proactive or predictive maintenance and management. And also it centralizes the data. So hitherto there have been some management systems in the last 20 years as well. People have been having, even inside industries, a lot of monitoring with sensors, but predominantly these were silos. So this data was staying in one place, or one location, or one manufacturing unit. There was no connectivity between that. But IoT is a game changer there. It kind of helps you to connect remote data from different locations, and also centralizes all of this, maybe in the office of head office. So your management can really have a complete understanding of what's happening in each of these areas. And asset health cycle improvement is also a key factor. See, these are on ground realities. And then connected operations across geographies. So say, for example, there is a sales office sitting somewhere across the globe, and a manufacturing unit in India. So IoT data on the cloud can actually bridge the gap between what's happening here and even an R&D center sitting in Germany. So you might be able to connect customer data, asset data on the ground with research and innovation and sales across the globe with IoT. Coming to the business impact, of course, there's cost optimization. So eventually all of these improved efficiencies will translate into cost optimizations. And the high level executives have a better decision making, that is statistics driven decision making, which is always good for an organization. And there is granular transparency across the enterprise operations. And there is a centralized repository of data. So this data gets collected over time. There is a lot of scope for future analytics as well, in terms of how processes can be improved. And there are new revenue streams and business models, as we discussed about. And eventually it's all about the customer. So there is an improved customer satisfaction and customer retention also possible by implementing IoT solutions. Now, in order to do all of this, we have to come back to the IoT solution itself. So when we come to IoT solution, there is a need to understand the different layers, how IoT solution can be architected. So this slide, I'll be talking more about. So we are really convinced that we need an IoT solution and how it can impact, which part of my business it can impact. Now we are going to drill down into the actual nitty-gritty of how to get it done. Now, as you see in this slide, I'm moving from left to right. The core part of IoT, as we discussed till now, is data. And that data is going to be driven basically by connected sensors. So the first layer of IoT is the sensor itself. The second layer is to make the sensor data to come into the cloud. So there is a connectivity aspect which is required. So to give you an example, sensors are the data originators. Say you can talk about wearables can sense your heart rate. For example, a tracker device senses location in a connected vehicle. A vibration or a pressure sensor can sit on a chemical container and give data about it. Now, this data has to reach the cloud. So if it is a smart sensor, it can directly talk to the cloud. Maybe it's LoRa enabled or a GSM enabled. That will happen by itself. But there are some traditional industries. Say, for example, when you go to industrial IoT or manufacturing space, there is a lot of investment already gone in. Even in the utility space, you have meters in your house already installed. So some of them may be smart meters. Now, in these cases, we do not want to disrupt the equipment or the PLCs or the CNC machines, which cost crores of rupees, and rip and replace them. There is a need for a gateway or a kind of a edge computing network, which will acquisition the data from existing sensors, from existing equipment, and then pass it on to the cloud. It's a connectivity enabler, you can say. And then finally, we come to the central part of the IoT solution, which is the platform. So why do you need an IoT platform? So basically, you could think of going and building from scratch everything about a IoT solution, but basically, it's basically a question between build or buy. Now, a platform gives a lot of additional capabilities. It comes out of the box doing a lot of things which are common to many IoT solutions. So which eases the process of you building an IoT solution. And the second factor is when you focus on the IoT solution, you would be concentrating on what your business needs and how you want to collect the data, how you want to analyze the data, what are the outcomes you want from the data. So the focus on your business area or your where you really need to live is on the data of interest to you. Whereas the infrastructure or the framework of other mundane tasks can be abstracted out into a IoT platform. So that is the key reason why an IoT platform is one of the key aspects of an IoT solution. Now, I'd like to bring you into a little more detail about what are the different things that are expected to be done by a good IoT platform. Say, for example, we at WebNMS have an IoT platform, and that essentially has these basic components. So one of the key factors is device management. Now, device management is, we are going to have thousands of sensors, or if not millions, at least thousands of tens of thousands of sensors on the ground for data collection. Now, initially during a proof of concept, it would not make a big deal to think about device management, but once you go for real deployment, when you have thousands of devices connected, it's important to know where they are, what is the device life cycle, and how whether managing its connectivity and upgrading it over the air remotely. So all of these things become important aspects, and that is what we call as device management components. So this is a key factor which we need to look at when you choose the platform. The second thing is the data acquisition and storage. Now, every platform has to do this function, that is acquire the data seamlessly from heterogeneous sources, because we cannot limit ourselves to a particular vendor, which will become a vendor lock-in, and also you cannot restrict yourself to a particular protocols, because say for example in the industry you would see different protocols like OPC UA or Modbus, but when we come to smart devices or metering, you would see a completely different thing. You might see AQMP or MQTT. So there are different kind of protocols also. So a platform has to be open enough to acquire data from heterogeneous devices. And then it should be capable enough to handle this huge amount of data, transforming them into relevant information, filtering out all the noise, and then finally being able to handle and store and analyze all this data. And the key factor, the third key factor, is security. So security actually ensures that your data is kept safe. So whether you being an OEM of a smart asset, which you have sold to millions of customers, and how it is performing on field, if there are any failures and things like that, this is information you would like to keep it very secure from competition. And if not for that, even otherwise in the industrial space as well, now how you do a production process may be slightly different from another one, so your data has to be secure. So a platform actually focuses on security to keep a secure edge connectivity. So in the data acquisition, it takes care of security. It does encryption of the data so that the transfer of data is also secure. And there is a role-based access control of who can see what on the platform. So once you create an IoT solution, also you need to have those restrictions in place, because what your CTO sees may be different from what a supervisor on the shop floor needs to see. Uh, so these two different, access controls need to be there. And of course, there is always a need for integrating IoT solution data into other enterprise systems. So, IoT as a silo is not much value. IoT has to bridge into an ERP or into a CRM. For example, we talked about customer success stories, right? So when we talk about customer satisfaction, we may have to push data into CRM. So what kind of reliable mechanism to interact with other systems is also important. So security is one of the areas which uh, a strong IoT platform focuses on. And then, of course, now we come to the data. So once we have data in, we have to do analytics on top of it and then visualize it properly so that it is insightful. And then there are dashboards and reports available for us to create the application which we intend to build. And then there is of course alarm processing, which is basically setting rules into how I handle the data, thresholding on that data, and then escalations like sending emails or SMS or even control actions back to the device. In many cases, control is an important aspect because it's not just monitoring but actually management, which is important to be reactive in real time. So or even proactive sometimes to switch off something before an event occurs. So alarm management is another area. And then of course additional SDKs kind of enable you to do mobile apps or other edge applications or APIs for integration to other systems. So this is the kind of different core modules that a platform has. And over and about that, it provides you as an application enablement layer. So this is where the business logic gets built. So every platform has a different way of enabling applications. So in case of, there are some IoT platforms which are more like infrastructure as a service. But for us at WebNMS, we have a application layer which is pre-built, and that application layer can be customized from the UI, which is like mashable, mostly drag and drop all your widgets and visualize the data, have configurations from the UI to connect data sources and get data inside. And of course, WebNMS also provides an edge layer, which is basically an agent or a software agent which sits on the gateways and the edge computing area and makes all the heterogeneous devices compatible and brings their data into the cloud. So the sensor network, the edge, and then the platform and application enablement are the key components which you would require to successfully implement a IoT solution. Then, of course, once you've done all of this, there is always the business integrations which are required. So business integrations essentially mean that you are uh, transferring this data or integrating, absorbing data from other systems and creating a unified data source, because this unification of data actually helps you to make better decisions across the enterprise. So interoperability and compatibility to open APIs like REST APIs is very important in this. So we can say that an IoT application enablement platform acts like a fulcrum holding together the various components of the IoT ecosystem. So it is important to choose the right IoT platform to get the best results. So as we discussed, it has to be open enough to connect to various different sensors, support various protocols. It should have good amount of support in the edge layer, so you can do edge computing, you can do analytics, you can do control of the sensors and devices, and then it has to have all the various components we talked about, and then it should give you enough flexibility on the application enablement layer. And that and a powerful IoT application enablement platform can be a tool for most system integrators. So if you are a developer or a system integrator, definitely take a look at WebNMS, because a platform with such capabilities is key in addressing IoT needs for customers and easily creating a proof of concept, or quickly developing something to demonstrate to them, and then proving the value, and then taking for a full scale deployment. And of course the platform has to be scalable enough to not only stay with the POC, but actually scale to thousands of devices when you are ready for the real time deployment as well. uh, so coming to the next slide, comprehensive IoT solution simplifies operations in an enterprise. So eventually, what happens is the IoT solution deployment in an enterprise goes through, it touches different areas. It actually goes through the IT team, and it collects a lot of operations data. So it works on the operations data, and then it integrates into enterprise applications. So this whole cycle repeats itself in different solutions, or it could all be integrated into a single solution as well. Now, the outcome of this is that there is a digital transformation across the enterprise, and there is transparency and data-driven operations, and there is a cross-functional data exchange. So that is a very important aspect we have to think about. So we cannot retain data as silos within the different functional areas, but rather try to integrate them wherever necessary. Not everything may be relevant because production data may not be relevant in HR, for example, but wherever relevant we can connect the data, and that will give you a unified and connected business operations across the functional data, which is blended across the whole enterprise. Now whether it is a SMB or a medium or a large enterprise, or industrial and manufacturing units, or even service organizations, as we looked at examples before, can benefit from such an IoT solution. Now we'll look quickly into a couple of use cases. So we've done some deployments, and these use cases stem from them. We're going to talk about two different use cases today. One of the use cases, real-time use case from WebNMS for industrial IoT. So in this case, the customer has a manufacturing unit where they have an assembly line where a lot of components for an automobile is being assembled. Most of the quite a few of the tasks being manual in fact. And as you can very well imagine, there is a humongous amount of parts which need to go onto a single automobile. Some of them large, but some of them very, very small. And the key thing is that these different parts, some of it may be visible from outside, some of it even not visible for inspection. And then there are variations in these parts according to which region the product is going to be shipped to as well. So the key challenge they were facing is traceability into the parts assembled and tracking the root cause of downtime in the production line. So with WebNMS, we have successfully implemented an industrial IoT solution to monitor and manage the overall equipment efficiency and reduce the downtime. So the WebNMS platform was used to build an IoT solution for monitoring this assembly line. So there are different stations which have stoppages because of unavailability of parts, or the wrong parts being present there, or a tool not available, or a malfunction, or a jamming of a particular tool. So there are various different root causes for line stoppages. So WebNMS IoT platform used to collect the real-time data from the PLCs and also create digital records of stoppages with the root cause, and then it also digitizes the parts being assembled through the asset tagging. So basically what happens here was more visibility into if there is a mismatched part, it was rejected proactively rather than reactively. That is it going to QC and being sent back to the production line. So there is, you can imagine the cost involved in this going to QC and then failing there and coming back to the line, which means there is a delay of a complete product cycle there. It saved the number of hours which was invested in a rejected product, and also it actually helped to identify the root cause of the stoppages. So it reduced downtime by 10% by identifying issues and bottlenecks in non-availability of the right parts or delayed in components arrival, better traceability of assembly process with digitization, and reduction in rejects at the QC by digitized process. This is one of the examples in manufacturing. There are a lot of stuff we have done for quality assurance and traceability for a lot of other industrial requirements as well. And coming to the utilities perspective, this is a smart city implementation. The second use case is for a smart lighting and smart energy management. So here the challenge was managing a large network of city lighting system due to lack of centralized control and operational visibility. So all of these lighting was initially done by automated systems, which were basically, electrical control systems. So there was a timer in each of these junction boxes, which has switched it on in a scheduled basis. So what happened is there's no visibility into what's happening or any failures or where there is an inefficiency or something has gone wrong and the light is going on the whole day. Unless the customer reports it, it was not even known to the authorities how much of wastage was there. And of course there was a lot of operational cost involved in sending people in a routine checks or scheduled maintenance. And also if there is a change in the schedule, then it had to be done manually. You can imagine the thousands of feeder pillars which had to be visited just to change the timer timings. So basically, this was so static and non-adaptive in nature. So the requirement was to monitor and manage the lighting network and automate these operations and create efficiencies in energy usage as well. So the WebNMS IoT platform driven solution was a smart lighting solution. It helped to automate the lighting. So it was more based on a astro clock as well as luminosity sensing. So basically it helped to optimize a shave off around half an hour on the schedules on a daily basis. This is a huge saving in electricity because this is done throughout the year in thousands of lights across the city, and then monitoring the lights in real time. So basically there may be some failed lights which we can identify because it is now connected and we are monitoring the energy usage. We can really identify where there is a failure and proactively fix it as well, and without a customer complaint being raised. And then to establish energy efficient dimming system. So we have done a dimming implementation as well. So this has resulted in a 30 to 35% energy savings due to the dimming and other optimizations, and a 20% optimization in operational costs due to proactive or on-demand or need-based servicing. So we don't do a scheduled maintenance or a fixing outages, after somebody has reported it, which may also involve fines. So it's more proactive in nature now. And the integration of lighting data is done to the GIS system, that is the Geographical Information System, for a unified smart city view. So that kind of brings us to the end of this session. But I'd like to ask you one last poll or a question, which Anmol, could you help me run the last poll, please? In your IoT journey, so can you pinpoint which place you had to convince your management most? Because IoT has, a lot of questions coming up from senior management, like whether regarding the business value or the ROI or the hardware cost or software cost, and outcomes for POCs, various different things. So maybe you can tell us what was your biggest challenge in your IoT journey.
The results are displaying on the screen, Karen.
Yeah. So as you can see here, definitely we see the highest percentage being software and implementation costs. And secondly, we have defining outcomes for proof of concept. And yes, we have discussed a lot of this because, when it comes to defining outcomes, it is important to, in the ideation phase or thinking, when you start your IoT journey, to clearly define the outcomes. Otherwise, your proof of concept may not be considered to be successful. And of course, defining and strategizing the ROI is important, because that is the factor which is going to help you to go for a full scale deployment as well. So a lot of varied answers here. Uh, but looks like the hardware cost is not a big threat as we had imagined it would be. Anyway, that's good to know. So let's get back to this. So that brings us to the end of this session. So we can take up some questions. Anmol, could you take over, please?
Thank you, Karen. The questions are displaying in the questions panel.
Yeah. So let's take the questions one by one. So Kailash J has posed a very good question indeed. So how would you overcome security threat and false data issues that arise using IoT implementation in a large scale? Yes, of course. As I said, this is a key factor where a platform can really help you, because security is something that both has to be addressed at the edge, that is the data collection layer, and at the server as well. Having a secure platform is important to ensure that your data is securely held in the cloud, and at transfer and at rest. And then the edge computing is a key area, because today with a lot of devices, we need to ensure that the um, edge devices or the smart sensors themselves have security inbuilt. So there is a need for encryption, and also there is a need to have a hardening of the hardware. And from the data perspective, the data has to be and the platform should ensure that data is coming from the right source, so that can avoid the false data issues, as well as DDoS kind of attacks by unauthorized data transfer to the cloud. So you'll have to identify this on the platform, check with your platform vendor, and choose the right platform, basically, which helps you to have security at edge and at the server. Um, so there is a question from Pradeep Kumar, who has asked, how can I learn IoT as it is involving hardware? Of course, there are, we talked about the different layers in the IoT ecosystem. So hardware is one part of it, there is software. So whichever is most comfortable for you. If you have already worked with hardware, then that is where you would like to concentrate on. There are a lot of IoT has a lot of kits which are available these days in the hardware, which you can try programming and try connecting that. So there are a lot of kits which are available, and you can use these IoT kits along with the platform and connect and see how the data comes up. So you can do that with the kits available. Through IoT, how data is secured? Again, I think Prabhu Shankar has asked this question. I answered Kailash's question. I think that would address IoT security has to be from the edge to the platform, and also in the visualizations, that is the application layer. So all the three areas, and in any other application integrations as well. So 4 areas we talked about today. So the platform is the key to enable the data security. So there is another question from Santosh about what should be the components of standard IoT service offering. So of course, we talked a lot about this. So any IoT offering will definitely have to start with sensors, then the edge layer, and of course the platform and the application layer. And definitely the data has to be integrated to other systems as well. So Your key components would be sensors, hardware, edge, connectivity, that is your GSM or LoRa or different kind of connectivity protocols also. Um, so Deepak Gaur has asked an interesting question, like what are the key parameters to choose connectivity? So see here, he has asked about GSM, Sigfox, and NB-IoT. This is an interesting question because um, it basically depends upon what kind of data you're collecting, and also the network coverage that you have in the region of interest where you're going to deploy the IoT solution, and uh, the amount of data that you're transferring, and the third thing is the cost involved. So these are the key factors that you would look at. Basically, say for example, if you are in an industrial setup, you have Ethernet already in place, so you can go with Ethernet. Now, if you go to a building management scenario, there is a Wi-Fi in the buildings. Most of the office buildings kind or commercial complexes have Wi-Fi, so you can use that itself, because that is going to be almost zero cost because you're using the infrastructure which is there. When you go to remote sites, say for example, one of our customers is doing tower management, cell tower management. So you have cell tower sites in all sorts of locations. Here the only connectivity possibility would be a GSM connectivity. So it would be apt to use GSM in that case. And there is also, you know, NB IoT is a narrow band IoT. So this makes sense if you have NB IoT coverage in your area, and then the bandwidth of the data is very small. So if you're sending large amount of data like industrial data, then this may not be the best choice. But this is good for smart city deployments where maybe, you know, parking sensors or any other, you know, lightweight sensors data has to be sent, but millions of sensor data are going to come into the picture. So NB IoT and Sigfox can be LP WAN, so they are low powered wide area networks, so that kind of a systems can be used. So the connectivity really actually boils down to the use case and the sensors, amount of data, and the coverage possibilities which are there. So how could you please talk about the factors to consider while buying out the edge computing versus computing on the cloud? This question is raised by Ananthasai. Yeah, this is also a good question. Like basically, there are very important decisions to be taken with regard to edge computing versus cloud computing. Number one is, at the edge, you have a limited processing capability. So there is a limitation. Now systems are growing a lot bigger on the edge itself, but still there is a limitation on what you can do, what amount of analytics you can run at the edge. But the best edge computing use cases would be first level of analytics. So say for example, thresholding or any rule engine based rule identification. Those things can be done at the edge. The reason to do it at the edge is, as soon as you collect the data, you can make a decision and immediately you can um, uh, do a control action, or you can do a response very quickly at the edge. So going to the cloud and coming back basically means there is a latency involved. So when you want to reduce latency and also when you want to do quick decisions, it's on the edge. When there is a larger analytics power required, then you're going to go to cloud. How can AI apply to IoT? Sanjeev Kumar has raised that question. Definitely. See, artificial intelligence is all about making more sense of the data. So AI basically is gaining intelligence in a more, recursive fashion. So once you collect a good amount of IoT data, that is not just thousands of records, but of course, maybe hundreds of thousands of records of IoT data. Then you can ask questions. You can do data modeling and do machine learning, or artificial intelligence is where this learning itself can be automated. So you can gather insights from the IoT data. So we talked about the prescriptive insights. So which is like you have what is happening now, and then you can project it through ML to say what is going to happen in the near future, like a trend. And then you can also prescribe what to do. So if there is going to be a machine failure at such and such a date, then maybe you can automatically schedule a maintenance earlier. So this is the kind of AI which you can apply on the IoT data. Maybe we can take a couple of questions and close it. How can IoT be helpful in a supply chain management? This is asked by Pragya Tripathi. So yes, supply chain is a very important factor where definitely IoT can be used. Even WebNMS has a fleet management solution, and this solution is all about logistics, tracking, geofencing, and also during the supply chain itself you have cold chain. Say for example, you need to manage temperature, or some chemicals need to be transported within pressure. You need to check their volatility, and so a lot of other factors. So when these data are measurable, then IoT can become a great tool to have traceability, to have customer assurance, and also um, transparency throughout the process, and real-time information about these systems. Um, so I think we take one last question. So Madan Mohan has asked, how does the MQTT and other protocols can be made more secure? Of course, MQTT has another version called MQTTS. So basically that is a secure version of MQTT. So you can use that for making the data transfer in MQTT secure as well. So we've got a lot more questions, but I think due to time, we'd have to close here. But please do get in touch with us at IoT-eval at webnms.com, and we would definitely be happy to help you with any of your other questions. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so
Over
much,
to you,
Karen.
Anmol.
Thank you so much, Karen, for this really motivating and empowering session today. I would also like to thank all our attendees for making this webinar a great success. The session has been recorded and the recording will soon be available on techgeek.com. Thank you everyone for joining us, and a very special thank you to you, Karen, for the insightful thoughts today.
Thanks, Anmol.